but the rest, seizing his slaves, treated them insolently and killed them. Matthew 22. 4-6 That corresponds to what would occur once the Christian congregation was established. At that time, the Jews still had the opportunity to be in the kingdom, yet most spurned this call, even abusing the king's slaves. Acts 4. 13-18. 7. 54, 58. With what outcome for the nation? Jesus relates. The king grew wrathful and sent his armies and killed those murderers and burned their city. Matthew 22. 7 The Jews experienced that in 70 CE, when the Romans destroyed their city, Jerusalem. Does their refusing the king's call mean that no one else would be invited? Not according to Jesus' illustration. He goes on to say, Then the king said to his slaves, The marriage feast is ready, but those invited were not worthy. Therefore, go to the roads leading out of the city, and invite anyone you find to the marriage feast. Accordingly, those slaves went out to the roads and gathered all they found, both wicked and good. And the room for the wedding ceremonies was filled with those dining. Matthew 22. 8-10. Significantly, the Apostle Peter would later begin helping Gentiles, ones who were not Jews by birth or conversion, to become true Christians. In 36 CE, Roman army officer Cornelius and his family received God's Spirit, coming in line for a place in the kingdom of the heavens that Jesus mentioned. Acts 10. 1, 34-48. Jesus indicates that not all who come to the feast will finally prove acceptable to the king. He says, When the king came in to inspect the guests, he caught sight of a man not wearing a marriage garment. So he said to him, Fellow, how did you get in here without a marriage garment? He was speechless. Then the king said to his servants, Bind him hand and foot and throw him into the darkness outside. There is where his weeping and the gnashing of his teeth will be. For there are many invited, but few chosen. Matthew 22. 11-14. The religious leaders hearing Jesus may not understand the meaning or implications of all that he is saying. Nevertheless, they are displeased and more determined than ever to rid themselves of the one causing them such embarrassment. Illustration of the marriage feast. In Jesus' illustration, who is the king, who is his son, and who are those first invited to the wedding feast? When is the call extended to the Jews, and who afterward are invited? What is indicated by the fact that many are called but few are chosen? 107, 249. Jesus' religious enemies are upset. He has just related illustrations that expose their wickedness. The Pharisees now conspire to ensnare him. They try to get him to say something for which he can be turned over to the Roman governor, and they pay some of their disciples to entrap him. Luke 6. 7. Teacher, these say, We know you speak and teach correctly and show no partiality, but you teach the way of God in line with truth. Is it lawful for us to pay a head tax to Caesar or not? Luke 20. 21, 22. Jesus is not fooled by their flattery, for behind it is hypocrisy and cunning. If he says, No, it is not right to pay this tax, he can be accused of sedition against Rome. But if he says, Yes, pay this tax, the people, chafing at being subject to Rome, may misunderstand and turn on him. So how does he answer? Jesus responds, Why do you put me to the test, hypocrites? Show me the tax coin. They bring a denarius, whereupon he asks, Whose image and inscription is this? Caesar's, they reply. Then Jesus gives the masterful direction. Pay back, therefore, Caesar's things to Caesar, but God's things to God. Matthew 22. 18-21. The men are amazed at Jesus' words. Silenced by his skillful reply, they leave. But the day is not over, nor are the efforts to entrap Jesus thwarts attempts to entrap him. Matthew 22. 15-40 Mark 12. 13-34 Luke 20. 20-40 Him. After the Pharisees' failed attempt, leaders of another religious group approach Jesus. Sadducees, who say that there is no resurrection, bring up a question involving the resurrection and brother-in-law marriage. They ask, Teacher, Moses said,